Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to one and all to the live video today. Today's topic being modern Islam and hegemony. Very crucial topic, but what is in essence is very important is the term modern being put in inverted commas, as in modern Islam. Does the aspect of modern Islam really exist? And what has been classified over time or is learned to be thought as modern Islam is what is the agenda of this lecture. So the basic essence of it is that our non-Orthodox Muslims are generally put into this title of you being modernist or you formulating a modern Islam or modern form of Islam. You're going to achieve secularism or the basis of a secular Islam being the new agenda of the day. And this had me thinking for a while. And when I came to this topic of why I'd like to tackle modern Islam and hegemony, correlating it with hegemony as the second part of it, is to enable people to understand that going out to achieve any sort of knowledge is beneficial from an Islamic point of view, and not only seeing Islamic knowledge as the only anchoring factor towards society, and to be able to understand that a person who goes out to seek any sort of knowledge. One second. Maaf, sorry for the disturbance in this. Maaf, 1 second. Is it right? Maaf for the disturbance in that. It's just that my laptop camera does not want to use the front camera, hence I had to turn the entire laptop around. I will try and have a look at it from my phone as well. To get back to where I was at and speaking specifically. Oh, should be right. Okay. Maaf for the disturbance again to everyone who has joined the channel. I'm just trying to see it from my phone as well. This should Okay, I'm just going to continue from this point of aspect. I'm sorry for the rotation of the screen. I can't seem to get it right. So, to formulate modern Islam and modern Islam what modern Islam means, or what modern Islam uh, in essence is the non-orthodox view. One second. Inshallah, this shall work from now on. Okay, to continue now. Modern Islam or non, as I termed before, Bismillah, welcome to everyone else who has joined. For the technical issue regarding the screen rotation, I can't seem to get the issue sorted out. But to continue without further ado, modern Islam, or what was termed by this lecture, is to enable us to understand the non orthodox Muslims who view people who go out to achieve education in terms of secular education as being modernist, or as a form of sometimes even classified as Salafis, and these types of words being incorporated into it, and missing the underlining factor of uniting people under the barrier of Islam and what the basis of Islam is, following the five fundamental pillars of Islam. And I joined this topic of modern Islam with hegemony, and hegemony entailing status and how one seems to superioritize one over the other. And to start off with this, when we start researching or trying to understand what modern Islam or what people Islam is, the reconciliation of faith with modern values such as democracy, civil rights, and equality. And to be able to derive this towards modern Islam is blasphemy of Islam itself, in the sense that democracy and civil rights and equality are the essence, fundamental pillars of Islam and what Islam seeks to achieve. And henceforth, the term modern Islam is just a way of ivoring out one again, creating a new type of hegemony in Islam itself, claiming that a certain sect or a certain formation or the way in which you live is in your type of Islamic view to be superior to another. And to go into the topic of Salafia, or what they call modernism, is they use the term of saying that no, you use the Quran and Hadith to interpret. You interpret directly from the Quran and Hadith without using ijtima and qiyas. Ijtima means the theologians, and qiyas being reason and analogy with ijtihad. This type of idea kind of formulates the group of creating what modern Islam is supposed to be, but modern Islam itself does not exist. Modern Islam is nothing but a quantification of students or scholars in a secular sense, and also called on many times secularists, to quantify them towards their view on Islam as in one sin is superior to another, or the fact that we all sin differently. And yes, every type of Muslim or every believer has a tendency to sin, and that's what makes us human. So to alleviate which sin is more superior is where modern Islam is now being used, in terms of having our Tablighi and our Sunni, and trying to cooperate these things. Coming from a campus space, and shukr alhamdulillah, being able to serve on the MSA during my term, a lot of integration was taught, and we were able to come together on common ground. And this later on translates when you come back home and back to the societies that we go in, that you have now become modern. And what I'd like to achieve from this entire thing is in my field of speciality, for example, chemical engineering. If we look at the scholars of Islam and these uh, these scholars who have contributed tremendously towards secular education, start off by Al-Ghazali, who was the most famous poet in the 7th century. And alembic is a chemical apparatus which was invented by Jabir ibn Hayyan, who actually went on further to be able to help us today classify metals and non-metals. He also invented hydrochloric acid, which is one of the most used acids, as well as sulfur mercury theory. And this was our Muslim scholars in it. Alcohol distillation, for example, which is a common practice in our industry, in my industry specifically, was invented by the Muslims itself. And its name, alcohol, it came up and arose from al-Qahali, an Arabic word in the 9th century. Algebra was invented by al-Khawarizmi. Banu Musa invented valves, and these type of valves were further expanded into many different dimensions of the different types of valves which we use in my industry as well. And sulfuric acid, another acid, was also invented by Muhammad bin Ibn Zayyan al-Razi. So these fundamentalists of going out to seek secular education and the importance of achieving secular education uh, doesn't trump Islamic education, but the need for a diverse society without quantifying or collectively placing brackets around people as modernist or a modern Islamic society um, is a typical example of what is being tried to what is being tried to allude to, what we are trying to allude to. And by these non-orthodox Muslim views does not differentiate you or deny you your ability as a human in terms of being able to achieve your goal and desire. And when we say strive in every single dimension of learning, strive to be the best in everything you do. And when somebody says this is a formulation of a European basis of Islam, democracy and civil rights, it's European influence. No, European influence brought colonialism. That's what Europe brought. So to blame Europe for Western colonialism to this, no, Western society brought colonialism itself, and that itself is what it brought. Furthermore, to go on to explain hegemony a little, to try and bring about the topic of hegemony and what hegemony actually means. To link this up further, I just want to go to quote a Surah An-Nisa, verse 135, which translates to, "O you who believe, stand out firmly for justice, as witness to Allah, even if it be against yourself, your parents, your relatives, or whether it be against the rich or poor." This to me, in essence, is exactly what modern society should head towards. And this is the idea of where we strive to be. And the word justice is what stands out to me in the statement, is that we incorporate justice in every practice of our belief and in every step and way of going forward. And to tackle hegemony is one of the topics of very much my speciality, but moreover, something which is very dear to me. And this is the aspect of culture, race, class, gender, which has breeded in our Islamic, Indian, Muslim societies, if I might term. And hegemony is the dominance of one group over another. And the indoctrination of culture, from Memon, Surti, Cockney, Miabai, the list goes on, to be every single culture seeks to be superior over the other, And these practices are taught to our children, which is a sad reality. And we see so much of this indoctrination in the kids growing up, where a simple action being done will be classified based on culture, race, and gender. And race being a big issue in our society, especially a South African society moving post apartheid, looking at our Indian communities itself, and this is something that we have forgotten to dismantle in the terms of we have dehumidified Black people in South Africa. And in essence, the way the words we use need to change. And this is part of a process of unlearning, which needs to be a priority in our daily lives in terms of when we get angry, the first words that come to our mind, and how we tend to use these words, and our children itself pick up these words, growing up and seeing our parents use it to kind of normalize the way in which it was used. And a very important aspect in Islam which touches this topic is the last sermon of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where just to quote the part in which I'd like to put reference to, two parts is the first being, "O people, it is true that you have certain rights with regards to your women, but they also have rights. Or you have taken them as your wives only under Allah's trust with His permission." That's the first part, to explain the hegemony of gender. So, as much as a woman has rights over a man has rights over a woman. And this hegemony of superiority of male over female needs to be removed from our culture and the way in which we go on into the practices of our daily lives. And the second part of the last sermon being, "O mankind, all mankind is from Adam and Eve. An Arab has no superiority over a non Arab, nor a non Arab has any superiority over an Arab. Also, a white has no superiority over a black, nor a black has any superiority over a white, except in taqwa, piety." And for this, for this understanding of race, culture, gender dynamics in our homes, the practical implementation is what is required and has lacked over times in which we pass. So as much as it's easier said on the tongue in terms of gender roles, in terms of class, in terms of race, we haven't tackled the technical issues in our houses and in our homes. And in order to do so, we need to go to the crux of it. And these are the teachings and practices we have succumbed to, rather. And firstly, culture, the aspect of oh, they come from a different culture. When our children are growing up, and the children itself are the basic route in which we witness the way in which propaganda goes on to the next generation and on and on. And by introspection into our personal lives, is that as soon as we get angry at person of uh, a person of color or a black person, if I may term it so, um, our mind is indoctrinated to say a bad word or criticize or form some sort of domination to feel better. So to create this sort of hegemony, internal hegemony, that I need to be superior in order to to take away the dignity of someone else based on their class, gender, race, whatever it might be. Oh, women are like that. Um, those type of aspects that we have already adopted into our lives need to form where we need to start changing in the way we speak, in the way a lot of times we have misappropriated this, say that we were just joking, it's just a simple joke. And to go on to say it's a joke, these are the cultural jokes, these are the cultural norms in which we have adopted to, and to joke around these jokes have become our reality, and once these jokes have already become our reality and part of our life, as much as it might be a joke or laughable for that moment, in actual fact it's oppressive, and to oppress another is sinful in essence. And to continuously adopt these jokes in our lives, and to continuously allow these forms of oppression to continue does not makes you as equal as the oppressor. And what I'm trying to say is that when these types of jokes are in our corridors, in our spaces, in our mosques, in our homes, wherever we might be, if we can't stand up, when a joke on race is being made, or a joke to derogatarize a person of color, or to derogatarize a black person, or to derogatarize a woman in our presence, if you can't take that initial stance of being able to stand up and say, my brother, what you are saying is completely off topic. It's wrong, and to try and bring up these type of spaces at home and wherever we might be is where it needs to start. And we need to be able to take that initial stance at every point of the matter and be able to to point out these wrongs in order to create a culture and to unlearn these practices of hegemony, if I may term them. Um, if there's any questions, Mark, let me try and get to the questioning, Mark, for the camera issue. So proud of you. To normalize oppression. Okay, Safia, proud of you. Jazakallah, 100% totally agree. Cultural traditions has changed us. Serbia. This is a really critical point. Jokes no function to normalize oppression. We've not prepared to call such jokes. Definitely. Jokes to me is the point in which um, jokes is the point in which we start the idea, or we tend to formulate this way of accepting it within us. And it is by these jokes itself that we tend to exclaim them as being a right, or we use these jokes as the way of superior superiorization, where we accept this culture and this norm, but we hide it within ourselves. I want to make this lecture as short as possible, just so that I could just tackle the main aspects of it, being just as a recap. If there's any other questions, Jazakallah Yasir. If there's any other questions that you'd like to ask, you may. But just to recap again, modern Islam has no fundamental basis, and we are an inclusive Islam. And to understand Islam is to understand that Islam has 5 fundamentals. We all sin differently. We need to uphold and to look at our own doorstep and resort to sorting how we can fix ourselves internally. And secondly, with regards to hegemony, we need to break down these things in the aspects of learning and unlearning. And these practices start at home. Shukran. If there's any other questions. Shukran to all who have watched. Jazakallah, ma for the tech.